Yeah.
How are you? Good. I am fine, thank you. I was just kind of like.
Let's give it up. You don't want to have enough people a long time.
I know.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Hi, how are you? I'm Nancy Vega.
Jason Graham.
Hi, Jason, nice to meet you.
Hey, how you doing? Big angry.
Jason Graham.
All right.
Good,
Where are you,
nice.
Jay?
Wow.
What do you got to say?
I don't know. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I would guess she's right here.
You
I'm guessing you're right.
You're probably gonna take.
Nope, I was wrong.
Yeah, you probably are right. Campbell's, so-
I wasn't sure if I was coming, so I think that's.
Let's get the thing on that.
Still should have you sit.
Yeah.
I just want to let you guys know that Christine said that everybody else is here about
There's
members
under
of the executive
Okay,
meeting.
okay. Hey, Vic.
Yeah. Thanks.
David wants to join the meeting. David, yeah, who's that?
sure they're looking at the clock and hey, we gotta hurry up. Right. And we're streaming already.
I'm sure I will.
Rich.
I will do my best.
I'm documenting.
Good idea, Bob. Thanks for coming on down. Nice to see you not on Zoom.
Yeah, right. It's not highlighting the act, it's highlighting you. Yeah, but there's plenty of talking going on. It is on YouTube. I mean, it's showing the board on YouTube as the active talker, but for some reason here, so let's worry about. It says who's talking. Doesn't show. Well, right.
Done.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, how are you? Good to see you.
Oh,
That's right. There you go.
Congratulations.
What am I now?
right, I know, right.
Your daughter just finished her junior year.
Yes, she's going into her senior year.
You started to look at colleges.
We started at
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you guys had a great time.
Yeah. Remember, I've been in Virginia forever.
That's right. They were one of the first ones to reach out to her, so it's not like she really wants together, but we visited Virginia Tech. And they were like,
Okay.
Bring your buddy along.
and it's very military.
It's so weird. I always sit up there, now I'm here.
I know, it's kind of, it's different side.
But
Got your name on it?
Does she want the city lights?
Yes.
She's an outstanding. Most teenagers had a spend.
Hello, how are you?
How are you? She did $1,000.
Because I would see you.
Of all things. Last night when I went to bed, she was like. Jacket for her. So yeah, so she's looking at that and then theater development, which you know. is very big.
Virtual hug. Well, we're in person and all that.
I know. My car came down here like I've been doing.
Funny how quickly it remembers all that.
Yeah, exactly. I ride a bike.
Another day. You're like, oh, wait a second, I gotta finish this right now.
Thank you so much.
Kind of amazing how,
So you said that you didn't.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so what the what? Right?
And they're-
And they showed me a picture. I can't remember the restaurant.
Even I have, I just think we should have-
Yeah.
Yes.
Both Battle and Main Street, just, yeah, just, you couldn't see
And the
down the
weather,
street.
the weather.
That was great. If people wanted to get out, they were very motivated to be out and about. And
Holiday
it's very busy on Sunday
Y'all
too.
decided to join us?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there a little bit on.
I thought we'd see you guys walk by.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah.
Yes, Florida.
Yeah.
It's powerful. All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. First, I would like to note that the commission is meeting in person and the public is able to watch the meeting on PRTC's YouTube channel. We will now observe invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we all stand for invocation? Lord, thank you for the ability to be back in person, to fellowship with one another, and really to do the public's business. We thank you for our personnel here at Omni Ride. We thank you for the ability to really get out and serve the community. And we ask that this is a fruitful meeting. In our sons, in our Father and Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christine, will you please call the roll?
Present.
Andrea Bailey. Present. Kenny Bodie. Margaret Franklin.
Present.
Janine Lawson. Here. Yesley Vega.
Here.
Pete Hanlon. Maggie Hansford. Kalai Kandasamy. Kim Short.
Here.
Jenny Smith. Ann Wheeler. Tanisha Allen. Cindy Shelton.
Here.
Meg Bunky. Thomas Cohn. Pamela Sebeski.
Here.
Ralph Smith.
Here.
Jeanette Rischel. Preston Banks. Alana Mensing.
Here.
Daryl Moore. Matthew Kelly. Jason Graham.
Here.
Deborah Frazier. Gary Skinner.
Here.
Tim McLaughlin. David Ross. Jennifer Mitchell. Jennifer DeBrule. Todd Horsley.
Here.
Lee Carter. Elizabeth Guzman. George Barker. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay. We'll now move into item 4, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So move, Madam Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey. Is there seconded by Ms. Sebeski? Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson. Yesley Vega.
I'm going to abstain. I was not at the last meeting.
Kim Short.
Aye.
Cindy Shelton. Pamela Sebeski.
Aye.
Alana Mensing. Jason Graham.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
thank you. I actually need to change my vote because Supervisor Vega reminded me of that. My son graduated and I was busy with family, so I wasn't here.
Well, that was just approval of the agenda, not the minutes.
That's what I thought too, it was of the agenda.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
And you can vote on the minutes even though you weren't here if you want to, you're not required.
okay. But so that was the agenda?
Yes.
Yes. My bad. Leave my vote as.
Ms. Margaret, can we change Ms. Vega's vote?
Yes, Ms. Vega's vote will be
Thank you.
recorded as an aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes, item 5. Is there a motion?
So move.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Skinner. Is there any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Abstain.
Yesley Vega.
Abstain.
Kim Short. Cindy Shelton. Pamela Sebeski.
Aye.
Alana Mensing.
Abstain.
Jason Graham.
Abstain.
Harry Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
We'll now move into item 6, the VRE CEO's time. Mr. Dalton.
Madam Chair, if I could just a question, and this is a housekeeping. Is mask optional to wear, or, is it okay if I take mask off, or?
STA guidance is they've asked us to please wear them inside federal
Okay.
locations as well as on vehicles.
Okay.
But we don't know if everyone's individual needs, medical, et cetera, so we're assuming you'll act as best judgment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Dalton.
Just, Madam Chair, is this okay? I just found a podium and I jumped on
Yeah, I
here.
think we can all see you.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And can I speak without the mask?
Sure.
Okay, doing that? Is that all right with that? Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to see everybody in person. And good evening, commission members. You have the VRE CEO report in your package. There's also the memo report in there. We did send out at the request of the chair from the last month, a little bit more detail on some delay issues that we experienced at the end of May. And of course, continued into June. So you have that memo in there, and I'll just highlight some things for you. But just to begin with, VRE returned to a full schedule June 1st. And with the full schedule, we also implemented our seasonal schedule on select PM Fredericksburg line trains. And as you're familiar with that, we started doing that a couple of years ago. That helps us to some degree from a scheduling standpoint combat the heat orders that we typically encounter this time of year. Our system-wide average daily ridership for June was up about 500 average daily riders from May at about 2,300. And we continue to see that continued uptick. System-wide on-time performance for June was right at 81%. And as the memo indicate, the second week of June, we did experience several train delays, primarily related to signal issues coming out of Washington Union Terminal. Those were also convoluted by congestion issues, in addition to VRE returning to a full schedule on June 1st. Amtrak also returned to essentially a full schedule on June 7th. So we've seen a lot of congestion issues out there, and simply in the month of June, even the fourth full week, we had some additional congestion issues out there because now the freight railroads are bringing back more freight. I did say to the operations board, and I think I mentioned previously, by coming back at a full schedule and saturating this rail network out there, one thing to keep in mind is that in order for us to all operate successfully, it takes the coordination between 3 railroads from a dispatching standpoint. So CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Amtrak. And of course, they haven't dispatched us collectively at this level of service in well, over a year, right? And so we knew this. We knew this was going to be we were going to have some challenges. We did have some countermeasures in place. We did help some of the dispatchers that had not dispatched us under a full service. We wrote some scripts for them and did a bunch of different things. And we're seeing that now, actually, as we head into July, actually, the congestion level, if you will, that the dispatchers can control go down. So nonetheless, I just wanted to expand on the reliability piece, and again, as a continuation from the discussion last meeting. And so obviously, if you have any questions, or I will get into this, into that issue a little bit more deeper at the operations board meeting a week from tomorrow. So that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Dalton? All right, Mr. Dalton, do you want to go into 6.2?
Yes, and so this is what we seek is the commission's authorization for the CEO to submit a LaFont Station and Port Track project to the US DOT for the FY 2021 Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Funding Consideration. So this is a notice of funding opportunity that came out, and we're seeking authorization for the CEO to submit an application. And this is for the LaFont Station and Fourth Track project that of course is in our system plan 2040. It's in our capital improvement plan, and it's an integral part of transforming rail in Virginia as well. This project specifically will realign, reconfigure the existing platform to be able to take trains essentially on both sides of the platform. It'll add a fourth track and some other accessibility type issues. So that's in a thumbnail version, that's what the project is. So Madam Chair, that's what we are seeking the commission's approval on.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Skinner, seconded by Supervisor Bailey. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Nestle Vega.
Aye.
Kim Short. Cindy Shelton.
Aye.
Pamela Sabeski.
Aye.
Alana Mensing.
Aye.
Jason Graham.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsgrove.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. And then just want to make notation of the VRE information items that should be in your packet. All right, anything else, Mr. Dalton?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move into item 7, public comment time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during public comment time? 3 minutes. Seeing none from the public, we'll now move into item 8, the consent agenda. For the consent agenda, we have items 8.2, which is acceptance of the Prtc financial report, which is what we do monthly. Items 8.3, which is authorization to budget and appropriate City of Fredericksburg motor fuels tax for various transportation projects. Item 8.4, authorization to deobligate $847 million of City of Fredericksburg motor fuels tax for various transportation projects. And item 8.5, to authorize the execution of an amendment to the memorandum of agreement between the City of Fredericksburg and the Prtc.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Second. Moved by Supervisor Lawson, seconded by Supervisor Bailey. Before I ask for any comments, Mr. Schneider, do you have any descriptions or anything to add for any of these items?
No, ma'am. Happy to help Fredericksburg out.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Right. Is there any discussion or questions? Mr. Skinner?
Madam Chair, did you call 8.3? I'm looking at 8.1, 8.2, 8.4, and 8.5. Was there a miracle?
I think she covered it.
She covered.
Well, what is 8.3? I don't, am I missing it?
Yeah, there's no 8.3
There's
on
no 8.3, it's just,
Oh, is there a typo?
yeah, you go from 8.2 to 8.4, but
Oh, not on mine.
it's up there.
Okay.
Okay.
I have the magic copy. I have 8.3 in mind.
Yeah,
I
mine
think you
is
skipped it
8.3.
on ours.
It's under my desk.
I had one that didn't.
Yeah. Okay, so just to clarify, 8.3 is authorization to budget and appropriate City of Fredericksburg motor fuels tax for various transportation projects. We do have a motion on the floor. Any other questions or comments? I guess we don't need to call the roll since we're in person. All in favor? All opposed? That motion passes. Okay. All right, we'll now move into item 9, Executive Director's time. Dr. Schneider?
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back in person. I want to take a moment of thanks to our IT team over the past year. We've done a year of virtual meetings. We had one in-person meeting here in September. There was a hybrid meeting. But for those who are new to the commission, this is a great looking room. For those who've been on the commission a while, this is a much improved looking room from the last time we were here. The large immovable backbreaking wooden tables, everyone having to turn to see the big screen has been remedied. And this is great because we use it for training. This is where TLS has its safety meetings. It is really organized, not just around the commission, but organized around the workforce. Since you guys meet once a month, but we're here all the time. Really have to call out and say thank you to Chris Terry and Carl Roser of our IT team. They're the ones who really identified the new technologies, how to make this work. Christina Doris did all the, in essence, picking out her furniture, but I have to really thank VRE for two reasons. Number one, they helped pay for it. And number two, they turned us on to Frank Parsons, who is the vendor who did this, did a great job for us. That's the vendor, if you've been to their offices in Alexandria, did their furniture rehab. But also this is what the same vendor we use in the same type of furniture in our Western facility. And it's also what we've done for the conference room. So it's worth just noting that appreciation, it's a year overdue, but we're gonna enjoy the spoils of this. So taking that moment to say thanks for the employees who are sitting at home watching. Thank you guys, it makes a world of difference. Beyond that, as for our COVID-19 update, ridership continues to climb. Through June, of course, it tapers off with the holidays as expected. But ridership remains strongest on our routes to the Pentagon. So that's coming out of Gainesville, Montclair, as well as Dale City to Horner Road, and of course Stafford to Pentagon. Those remain our strongest routes overall. We remain under the federal mask mandate for inside our facilities and on transit vehicles, which has been an issue in locations, but not here. In that, in many places, you don't have to wear a mask anywhere you go except on a transit vehicle, and that creates consternation. Luckily, our passengers seem to be very chill. Our drivers seem to be very relaxed about it in terms of working with customers, and we just haven't had those incidents. So we're very thankful for that. We did lift all of our capacity limitations in terms of vehicles, and that followed the governor's order. So we are under that step. Let's see, what else we're missing. Masks are not required outside, whether at a bus stop or at the transit circle. And we are continuing to support and maintaining employee health and cleanliness through where we are maintaining the temperature scans, the sanitizers, all the things that are necessary and are probably going to be part of our daily lives for a long time. We are poised for fall and are prepping potential service enhancements that may include a slightly longer and flatter peak period. One of the things we're seeing is instead of that crush being in by 9 a.m., we're getting a lot of phone calls asking, are you going to have services available at 10? Or are you going to have more midday because people are going in for critical meetings and then returning home? We just aren't sure, but flexibility is key. We also continue to see the shifts in terms of van pools, different programs. Some customers are only back to riding us 1 day a week, but where they still ride with us. So putting that attention remains key. So we're good there. For our facility update, we launched services quite successfully from the new Manassas garage. Barbara's going to talk about that. Keolis has done an outstanding job. I don't use that word often. Outstanding job in getting the equipment, the parts, the inventory, the drivers. They didn't have desks to work at to start out. They didn't have places for drivers to sit. We found ways to make it work. And not only did they as a company do a great job, they really did everything to help the operators understand. Give us a couple of weeks, it'll be. It's just obviously timelines and challenges with getting anything in America seems to take a little longer these days, but they did a great job. We continue to see massive changes in the I-66 landscape. They have now constructed the new ramps on I-66 into the median coming down off of University. It just looks like it's been carpet bombed in some parts of I-66, but also the Ballsford Road interchange is going to be created on 234, which will help us out in terms of our ebb and flow along that area. Again, we also had the issue with the collapsed drainage section, the manhole on our facility. We are nearing the completion of work for that. The associated geotech is complete. All of the underground stabilization is done. The reinstallation of the light pole base is completed, and we are down to asphalt and installing the light post. So good job on the facility team getting that done. And we will again look at the long-term issue for the facility so we don't end up in that situation again. And finally, before I pass things to Ms. Murdoch, I wanted to announce the promotion of Mr. Byron Lloyd from Manager of Safety and Security to Director of Safety and Security. He's had the leadership and regional coordination during the pandemic, really elevated not only our reputation, but also our on-street product. His passion, his energy, for those of you who are able to celebrate with us in the TSA Gold Standard Award. Again, I keep saying it because it's worthwhile. We are the first and only bus-only system in the entire DMV to have this award. It is a big deal. We continue to see the excellence, and congratulations on him for him and the work he's done. We'll be sharing this with the workforce tomorrow, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share now since you guys will be back here till September. So with that, I turn it over to Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Snyder, for those kind comments about Keolis, but I want the commission to know that the success we've had has been as a result of a wonderful partnership. We thank you for that. We partner with PRTC, and our teams work together to make these things happen. Today, we're in the hiring mode. So if you have anyone looking for a job who is an operator, dispatcher, supervisor, send them to the Keolis.com website because we have opportunities. And that's because we are planning for the expansion with Manassas and just a normal turnover in transit. And with the kind words, I feel like I should knock on wood because everybody who's asked me tonight, how's it going? It's going great. And in transit, to have a smooth bid run, service change, and move all in the same month, it's unbelievable that you can do it and not have some major catastrophe or disaster happen. We have our normal ins and outs in transit daily, but basically the operations are going smooth, the complaints are down, even with going from adding new service routes, so that's a good thing. And again, the operators seem happy and the employees seem happy with that. And that's how we judge our success. I'd like to invite you all out to come and be a part of our employee celebrations as we team with PRTC to celebrate National Hot Dog Day. And that's July 22nd. And we'll be serving hot dogs, hamburgers, and vegan options from 11 to 1 here in Woodbridge and at Manassas. Just another employee engagement event that we support here. So thank you all again. Good night.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the partnership between PRTC and PRTC and Keolis, pardon me. It is very much noticeable and we appreciate it and in the time where it can be extremely difficult during the pandemic. So just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Dr. Schneider or Ms. Murdoch or comments?
Sure, there's just a great article about some of the questions that are emerging as to what does it take to bring Virginia up to speed. The General Assembly had a prior study to look at what are some of the infrastructure needs. In this past year, the General Assembly also passed a transit equity review and study that's occurring statewide. So we're participating in that. We're actually part of the guiding, one of the groups that helps guide that conversation discussion. But it's an article that helps dip into some of the key questions to give you an understanding, whether you have transit in your district or not, what are some of those key challenges we face?
Okay, we'll now move into item 10, presentations and information. We'll start with the PRTC classification and comp study. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Mariner to kind of go over that. We'll do the presentation and then we'll do questions and comments after.
We actually have Baker Tilly online with us virtually, and they have a presentation that will be on your screen that she'll be going through. It's Jada Kent and Steve Miner from Baker Tilly. Hopefully they can pull them up and their presentation.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Becky. This is Steve Miner. Also with us is Jada Kent. I'm the managing director of Baker Tilly's public sector compensation and classification group. I work out of the Washington, what we call the Washington DC office, which is really in Virginia. Jada is out of Plano, Texas. She did most of the work on this project, and had expected to do the presentation this evening. She's with us, but is feeling a bit under the weather. So I promised I would do it, and she promised she would let me know if I goof it up in any way. Jada is a certified compensation professional as a manager in our system. So a very key part of what we do. The a short agenda is there in front of you. We'll go over each of those items in turn. So Becky, you want to move forward? We can talk about those as we get to them.
Advance the slide.
Okay, thank you. Here's a bit of a timeline on the project. It started some time ago with data collection starting back in March of 2020. We did a lot of the work during the 2020 timeframe. We then spent a fair amount of time. We had to go back and update the data at least once. We were able to get some additional data that was very helpful to the study. And then we developed a pay plan doing the regression analysis on an interactive basis with your staff there. We want to thank everyone there, starting with Becky and all the other directors included. We appreciated their help. Wouldn't have been possible without them. Finally, we've come to this point. The BRE portion of this study, I believe, you've got a recommendation later on your agenda, which Mr. Dalton will talk to you about. But currently, I think the idea is to move forward with one half of the study, which is what we're really talking about here today for OmniRide. But we did do the study as a whole. I want to be clear about that. But toward the end, we have split it essentially into two pieces to move forward on. So first of all, a little bit about comp and class. Many of you who work in organization, you've had this done inside your organizations. We have a system called SAFE, Systematic Analysis and Factor Evaluation, that we use to do our job evaluation with. It contains 9 compensable factors. So we get data from you, from the client, through a document called Position Analysis Questionnaire. That survey or instrument collects data on these 9 compensable factors. We then incorporate employee input and the participation we receive and other input from management and others, and do your job evaluation using that data. It is compliant with the Federal Equal Pay Act and Virginia's Equal Pay Act. We then, that's for your internal equity. Then we go out to the market and look for data from peer organizations identified by you, by the client, as the ones you wish to compare yourself to. We run a regression analysis on those results and develop a pay plan based on that. Here are the peer organizations. Those marked with an asterisk, I believe, were the ones that we added later. And they came from the American Public Transportation Association most recent salary report, which the organization kindly provided us with. It was very helpful to augment the data that we collected. So we were able to collect data from 16 of the 22 organizations which were named or targeted as data sources. It's not untypical that not everyone wishes to share information. So we thought we had done a very good job getting the data that we did. And really you ended up with, we felt, a very strong data set as a result. Let me give you also add just briefly, what we do is we actually go out and ask these individual organizations to match their jobs to the jobs that we identify as benchmark jobs inside of your organization. So they actually had a list, they had a brief description of each of the jobs, the minimum requirements for each job, education, experience, and so forth, and they were asked to match. So we feel good that we had a good match in each case. part of our quality assurance is in fact that we ask them to have at least 75% overlap from their jobs that they're matching to these. And so they're going to report back the pay data to us based on their assessment of the information we have shared that we've collected from clients and shared with them. Some of these organizations, there's a note, did return their data for us to match, which we did. And then some of the online survey stuff that we got, we were also able to match directly. For quantity's sake, we do require at least 5 matches per benchmark position. That way we can be assured that we've gotten enough data statistically to make it a good match. This establishes what we call a market value. We have benchmark positions which receive more than 5 matches. We then adjusted the data. Some of it was obviously outside your area. You can see from the list. We applied a geographic differential established or available to us through our membership in the Economic Research Institute. This is called the cost of labor index, and it's actually published, I think, by the federal government, but we get it through ERI, and they have that information available for all of the areas that you saw there on the list, and we're able to then match up and compare apples to oranges, so to speak, using this methodology. And it's an accepted methodology for comparing jobs that are outside of your immediate market area, but for which you would like to have an appropriate comparison job to job. So we were comparing the exact jobs, but then we adjusted them using this formula and this process. The pay plan was then developed based on that information and that market data that we got. We ran a regression analysis comparing those SAFE scores, the internal equity, and the external equity, the average midpoints that we've received through our market assessment, market data collection efforts. So we then ended up developing pay plans, proposed pay plans, I might add, with 40 grades showing a 5% midpoint differential and a range spread moving from 60% up to 70%. As a rule, lower ranking jobs tend to have narrower bands and higher jobs, broader bands, simply because more complex jobs tend to require a little bit longer to master. Positions were then classified into their respective pay bands based on that regression analysis, which is a line of best fit really to the data that we've received. I'll show you those in just a moment. And that is a mixture of internal and external results. Finally, on pay plan development, one of the things we discussed with the staff there is that it's ultimately your choice as an organization whether you wish to lead or lag the market. That's part of your compensation philosophy. We have clients who do choose for a variety of reasons to lead the markets, or maybe they'll lead the markets in some areas and be with the market in other areas. However, the data and the information you have presented here is the market as we found it. There are no adjustments shown. And there are the regression analysis, including the R-square values, the coefficient of determination, and that really, you can see in the little box, shows you how close the data points are actually to the regression line or the line of best fit. In both cases, very solid results in the high 90s, which is certainly, we think, a very excellent result. The dotted lines represent a 5% plus or minus 5% variance from the midpoint or the actual line that's depicted there. So we feel confident in the results. This is an accepted best practice for how you do this work. We do it routinely for all of our clients, and at least most of our clients. Bottom line is we feel you have a solid result based on this, and by adopting this, you will end up achieving excellent internal equity, and you will be competitive with the marketplace. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. Appreciate the opportunity to have done the work and to have had the opportunity to work with the organization. It was a great pleasure to do so. Be glad to answer any questions.
Ms. Mariner, did you have anything to add to that?
Only that when Baker Tilly started the comp study, we were delayed a little bit with COVID. We went back out to get more data. We had asked for one pay plan based on our personnel policies. However, they were able to split out with their Gresson analysis and let us see what the two pay plans look like separately, and which they have done that for us, so that we could look at adopting a classification plan for OmniRide employees, and then also potentially doing something separate for VRE.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Shelton?
Madam Chair, I have a question about the peer communities you chose, and I appreciate looking at those. We did something similar in Stafford County. And the reason I'm looking at it, because I'm assuming that you looked at one of those skill sets was transportation planners. And it led me to wonder why FAMPO or GWRC, which has transportation planners and TDM planners, were not considered in that peer community for this region.
Thank you, Becky. These were the list that we discussed and finally chose to pursue based on their discussions internally. Mr. Dalton may have a better answer for that, something that's a little more specific to your actual question. Not all of these, I might add, had every position, of course. So some of these had some positions we were looking for, others had others. Some obviously had more and some less, but at the end of the day, it is our practice to work with the client to get the peer organizations. And so Mr. Dalton may wish to address that, or Becky.
I can answer a little bit of that. And what we did is we looked at organizations that deliver operational transit services versus MPOs, things of that nature. So that's why as you look at that list, but we also looked at what are the governing bodies that fund the organization, and that would be kind of that driving force, because ultimately you would also fund the FAMPOs. You would also, that's where that parallel comes in, as your standards and how you compensate is what would drive a lot of those functions, as opposed to the smaller MPOs.
Madam Chair.
Sure, did that answer your question, Ms. Shelton? Did that answer your question? Okay, Ms. Lawson?
Thank you. So I don't know if I should ask this of Baker Tilly or of Becky, but maybe I'm the only one sitting here needing more explanation on regression analysis. Does anyone else need a little help on that? I love regression.
So I can give a pretty simple explanation. So what they do is they identify what are the variables, such as market value, position, geographic location, functionality. So that is one of those good old fashioned Y equals X1 plus or times X2, whatever that.
Algebra.
It's good old fashioned algebra. And so each of those independent subweighting has that mathematical value. So it's just that calculation. And so as you carry that out, you get this balance of what is expected and where does it land. So by doing that regression analysis, you end up with a line. So that line is really just the center point of everything, and how does it carry all the way through. Then your dots are where the actual numbers are, and then your dotted lines are 5% standard deviations above the mean.
Okay, so
good old fashioned math. So my wife's a teacher, so.
Yeah. I should have paid closer attention to algebra. So market value I got. You said the position, so that there could be a little variables and positions from our peers. You did say that you have a 75% match, so one can assume it's not too much of a variable, right? What were some other, variables or whatever we're referring to?
So Steve this might be where he fits in to specify.
Sure, there are actually, in our system, the SAFE system, there are 9 compensation-related variables looked at for each position. And that's really primarily for internal equity purposes. That's not, we don't go outside and look at that in other organizations. On those organizations, the peer organizations, we're looking at, first of all, matching. Are their jobs doing the same thing? And that's where the 75% comes in. We're asking folks to look at the job descriptions we send them, or the job summaries we send them, and the other data that we send them on the individual jobs. In this case, the 52 benchmark positions that we sent out on the survey. We asked folks to look at those and match. If their job matched at least 75%, we asked them to give us back the pay data for that position, for all of the positions which met those criteria. And so that's where the 75% comes from. Regression analysis is really is just an effort to compare, as was pointed out, the SAFE total points, as you see on the x-axis, to the survey midpoint. Now, all the dots represent the midpoint. We develop pay structures. It's the common way of doing it, best practice way of doing it, to develop pay structures off of that midpoint, because that.
Mr. Minor?
Yes, ma'am.
So would you explain a little bit more though, like maybe I missed it in the earlier part of your presentation, but what do you mean by the SAFE point and the survey midpoint? Can you give me an example, a hypothetical, so I can wrap my head around this? Like, take whatever hypothetical position you want in our organization, but I need a little more.
Sure, of course, happy to do that. The SAFE point is simply our assessment point value that results from our analysis of the job. Using the position analysis questionnaire that I mentioned earlier. We collect that information on each job. It's filled in by the individual employee and reviewed by supervisors and approved and sent back to us as an accepted set of duties and minimum requirements for each position inside the organization. That is based on a point system. It's a fairly common way of performing internal equity on jobs by firms doing our sort of work. Ours happens to have 9 compensable factors that it looks at. Actually downsized that and don't have those in front of me at the moment, but they are, they're pretty standard. And it might be things that you would consider to be appropriate to compare one job to another if you were looking to rank them in importance or difficulty of work, and a variety of other things that they're listed under. Supervision is one of those, for instance. Scope of work, how scope of freedom of operations, how much freedom people have to make the decisions, the impact of their decisions. There's a variety of those, up to, as I said, there are a total of 9 SAFE factors. So there's actually a point score that each of those factors receive. We total those, and we end up with a total point score for each position in the organization. And that's what the SAFE point total points represent. If you see that the points are actually the intersection of a particular job and the midpoint on the salary survey. Salary survey goes out, it collects information on those jobs that, as I indicated earlier, were matched to your jobs. We, as a result of that survey, are able to determine the midpoint of that particular salary. Sometimes it's a single number, and we use that for the midpoint, but most often localities and other organizations have ranges, and we can deduce the midpoint from that if they haven't provided it to us. So the point is, that point that you see on your regression analysis screen there in front of you is the 2 points coming together off the X and Y axes. You have the SAFE total points score, and then you have the survey midpoint. And that's That's the dependent, it's called a dependent and independent variable. But that is how you build a pay line.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Lawson, was that, are you?
Yeah, I'm on the same page now. I appreciate it. It's basically position and salary and it- based on what if I'm reading your graphs properly, you know, we're doing okay.
Well, yes, what this shows ultimately is that you can have high confidence that if this is adopted, you're being fair to your employees, that their jobs have been analyzed and taken through this safe system. They've been separated by a point system that's accepted and meets all federal and state requirements for equity and fairness.
So I'm sorry, so this graph is based on adoption of the new plan, not existing?
Correct. This is what we're proposing.
All right.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We have to vote on this in item 11.2. Yes, sir.
No, that was my question, if this was the proposed or this was existing, because if this was existing, I would say, what's the point of changing? If everything would look like it was perfectly in line. Also, just another question of, I mean, with the, I guess this with the proposal, I mean, does the, union, non-union come into play? Is that one reason that this could be so nicely aligned? I mean, because, this R squared, it's almost too perfect.
Yeah, these are not union positions. These are for the Prtc employee base, not the Keolis base.
Okay.
And what this is post analysis where we have done the labor of analyzing the positions. We have done the labor of this. So it's supposed to look this good. If we had employees juggling chainsaws and we were paying them $30,000 a year, you would have very dangerous safe jobs at very low pay. That's when we would be outside the line.
And that's
So what this does is this is a reflection of that we are properly identifying compensation.
Yep.
I mean, one of the key questions and with permission, Madam Chair, one of the key questions is, well, what is the fiscal impact of this? Right now, through this process, we've identified 11 employees that are currently being paid below the minimum for this position. Some cases, it could be as little as $500. In several cases, it's several thousand. We understood this and we budgeted for it. Again, this is because over the past 4 years, we've changed the organization. The market has also changed, which is why we did this. If we didn't have an internal understanding that there were changes that needed to be examined, we wouldn't have asked for this class and comp study. So that's the last class and comp study, I believe, was 2013. So we are right for this step. It is worth pointing out that the employees that are below the minimum in almost each instance are in the organization, the lowest paid employees in the organization, not in every instance, but in many. So our first and primary goal is to get them to that minimum. And then we can address the other questions of midpoint. Then we can address other questions of do we lead the market, et cetera. At this stage, the request is to adopt this base class and comps plan so we can move those employees forward and address the other issues. So we're excited about this. It also includes job descriptions that address the equity questions. The thing that makes me proudest of this, other than the compensation component, is this is, I think, the first time we really had a really inclusive approach to how we did the descriptions. So the employee got to do their job description with their supervisor. So they got to do it, give it to Baker Tilly. Baker Tilly did the work, then it came back, and then the employee and their supervisor worked together to develop it. So this is not a case of me locked in a room or HR locked in a room deciding what employees do. It was an inclusive process so that employees are invested in this and have a level of understanding of how we got to where we are. But the SAFE tool is wonderful in that we now have a more scientific and systematic way to evaluate employee compensation. It's not based upon whether I like somebody.
Thank you.
Whether I like you, don't like you, whether you sneeze. It's just, it takes that out of it and also creates a mechanism when there's an output of that and it doesn't fit internal equity. Then we can evaluate that and say, why does this position not meet the pay rate that peers do? Or why is it above? Well, this position is a chainsaw juggling position. Oh, that makes sense now. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking forward to in terms of this, because right now, each time we evaluate a position, it's what we think or what we guess. This gives us a more scientific and systematic approach and ultimately provides more inclusion and equity in how we go about our business in the HR department. So those are some of the key things that, again, we're excited to get employees above what should be their minimum right now.
And just a couple more questions, because we can also talk more about it when we get to the actual item, but Ms. Short.
I just want to make sure, is it safe to assume that if anyone is above the midpoint, no one will be at risk of any financial reduction?
There are no planned financial reductions for any employee whatsoever.
I just like to make a comment and point out, you know, this, and Bob said it really clear, and I often use this term is we gotta always remember the backstory. We have few commissioners here left on this commission that know the process of about 4 years ago and all of the turmoil and changes that went on. I think this is a great step in really getting to the final remedies of a lot of processes that had occurred previously. So, you know, I think this is really aligned with kind of polishing up some processes that needed to be fixed. So,
If we can, I guess, move to item 10.2. Stainsby.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Thank you
Steve.
all very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
I forgot about Steve. Thank you, Steve. He's so small in the little box.
He's so small.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to present. Thanks so much. Have a good evening.
You too, Steve.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I will endeavour to be succinct this evening in the interest of time and everyone's sanity. But just to let you know, the item that you will be voting on later on in the agenda includes no decisions on service. It's simply our opportunity to hear from the community about services that we feel can improve what we offer to folks in our service footprint. So on the next few slides, you'll see a lot of words that I won't read, but to me, it's very much kind of a leave behind piece for you guys. So we're on the slide, okay, we're on the right slide. Microtransit. What is microtransit? Think of it this way, it's kind of threading the needle between what we think as a TNC, transportation network company like Uber and Lyft, and what we consider as our typical fixed route transit. So it's something that's going to be typically smaller than a transit bus, a cutaway, a van of some kind, and it's something that's not running on a defined fixed route schedule, it's dispatched on demand. So it's something that's going to be booked through an app or booked through a call center if necessary, and is going to be a bit more flexible than you would normally experience. Next slide, please. Excellent. So in terms of, it has many advantages, fills gaps, can be more cost efficient, can offer potentially better headways, can offer greater cost effectiveness, more analytics in terms of, you know, the data on the customer experience. Next slide, please. Specifically as it pertains to us, we are proposing a pilot for microtransit concerning the Route 68, the Manassas Park local. The reason that we are using this route is really two reasons. One, it's the ridership that has long-term suffered in terms of having the chronic lowest ridership that we have out of our local routes. This is because of a lack of local trip generators. It's mostly residential, shortest span of service, longest headways. It's something that would allow us to provide what we think is going to be a better service in that area. Same, if not greater coverage area, potentially better headways, you know, because it's dispatched on demand. And so what it will allow us to do, at least initially, is to use we have two Ford Transit vans that we run paratransit on the western side of the county. We will be able to use those vehicles downtime when they are not providing paratransit trips to be able to provide this micro transit in the area. So it allows us to have better utilization of the fleet that we currently have. If it's successful over the course of the pilot, and we don't look at, rolling it back to, normal fixed route transit if it merits that, we would look at acquiring cutaway vehicles or something like that so that it wouldn't have to operate in a, paratransit, microtransit hybrid format, okay? So we think that it can solve those issues. Next slide, please. In so doing, it can offer those better headways, the efficiency. It is, a budget neutral proposition at this point in time. And certainly over time, depending on how things work out with platform hours and this, that, and the other, could ultimately, realize savings for the agency whilst ultimately delivering a better customer service experience to the end user. And whilst you see on the bottom of your screen there, you've got all these fantastic colored vehicles with loud things emblazoned all over them. Just so that everybody knows, this service is going to be soup to nuts an OmniRide service, right? It's going to be, the person's going to have OmniRide on their shirt. It's going to be an OmniRide branded vehicle. It is going to be the OmniRide service that everybody's used to seeing, just in a different vehicle than we typically run it in. So it's not going to say Lyft or Via or whatever company that you would use as a software overlay, of which there are a litany of them that we are looking at. So I think that's my last slide on, no, one more slide on that. So next slide, please, Colin. So what this will hopefully allow us to do is to, allow the span of service. We can broaden it out so it can match the other routes in that area, the 65 and the 67. As I mentioned earlier, it's booked through a call center or an app, depending on, the end user's familiarity with technology. And it is, as it said, it would be a major service change. And so we're coming before you guys this evening to ask permission to go to a public hearing to get that feedback from the community to see if it's something that they're okay with. And that's it for the Mark Center. That's it for microtransit. The next thing is onto the Mark Center. What you'll see there are the two routes as they used to exist, the L300 and the D400, Lakeridge to Mark Center and Dale City to Mark Center. These routes were originally put in place through commuter choice funding, commuter service funding from the state from February 2016. Since its inception, especially the Lakeridge route was chronically low ridership. In August 2019, we retimed the routes to try and get better ridership. It wasn't really very effective. Once the pandemic hit, stay-at-home orders, OmniRide suspended the service, then we reinstated it in June, and then suspended again due to, again, low ridership. On June the 7th, so just a few weeks ago, we put back in what you'll see on the next slide, please. There we go, which is the modified D400 route, which, hang on, so where am I here? Yes, and so we re-put in the modified route on June the 7th, which takes routing through the Horner Road lot. And what we are asking for permission to come to the public hearing to have is to simply make this existing routing, which we have here, you see on your screens, permanent. We will constantly monitor this. If there are concerns and it is a problem potentially with parking on Horner Road or something like that as time goes by, the things that we do, the things that Joy and Perrin and everybody are excellent at is making sure that we make service adjustments where we need to. So in the event that we did experience overcrowding down the line with this route, we would potentially look at maybe splitting it out or adding other things in. But for right now, this seems to be working as well as possible, and it's not really justifiable to go putting the Lakeridge back in. So that's what we want to have the public hearing for. And I think that's the last slide for that. And I will take questions if people would like to have them.
Are there any questions or comments, Ms. Sebeski?
Thank you. Couple of things. I think that the microtransit on demand is an interesting idea, and it definitely is something that's been talked about in Manassas. I can't speak for Manassas Park, but I know in Manassas for a long time about maybe the buses being too big for the routes during the day that they're going. The public hearing on August 25th, where will that public hearing be?
So did you say where?
where?
I believe it is intended to be here with a virtual component, but we can certainly talk about moving it to a location that's more proximate to the area where it would be happening, if you would like.
Okay. Yeah, we could try,
We could do it in the Western
I agree, I
facility
mean, I
that
think if that, for that particular one, the Manassas Park Local Route 68, whether it's at Manassas Park or Manassas City, I think it definitely needs to be closer to where the ridership is more likely to be affected.
That seems eminently reasonable. We can certainly do that.
And just to note, one of our challenges in setting public hearings is some buildings are not open for us yet.
I can't speak for Manassas Park, but ours is never closed.
There we go. So we try to go to the community center, places that are inside the neighborhoods, and we don't limit ourselves to just one. We have to have a formal, we call it the flag in the ground public hearing, but we generally meet with other groups as well. We might have between 4 and 5 different meetings, but we have the formally publicly announced. But then separately, we go into community centers. We also ride the transit vehicles, and we hand out flyers to give us feedback. You can send an email, you can make a phone call, you can call our customer service department. All the many options to get public feedback.
I don't disagree. I just think that it would be good if it were closer to where those people live. And definitely, I'm assuming that Alana's doing the same thing I am. I'd like to be able to make sure that this is getting out on our city web pages, our, electeds, get the information out, like you said, to as many people as possible to comment on it. And just so that if we're gonna be able to pilot it, the idea is to get as many people involved as possible so that we can get the good feedback. And we just want to help you help this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think if we can make that work with you guys, then certainly we'll be more than happy to do that. I mean, just as a side note, this is kind of the thing, with a lot of transit agencies right now. And so if this represents an opportunity for us to dip our toe into the water to potentially bring a much more dynamic, potentially more useful service model to, albeit a very small part of our service area, it's something that we hope to be able to do more widely if it's viable and if it makes sense for people. So yeah, anything we can do to make it more successful and get more communities' feedback, the better.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and Dr. Schneider, can we just go ahead and maybe officially work with Ms. Savesky and whoever else has a stake in that area to see what other locations are probably better? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have just a comment really on the Mark Center public hearing. So the risk of correcting you, I believe that those routes are funded 100% through the state funding from the I-95 program and not through commuter choice.
Yeah, that's correct. I misspoke.
Okay, no problem. But so anyway, DRPT is very interested in or very supportive of this public hearing. We have worked with Perrin to try to redesign these or supported redesigning these routes because we were concerned about the low ridership on them. So anything that can be done to improve the productivity of these routes, we're in support of.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Lawson.
I just have a question related to service like this. I talked to Dr. Schneider about it several times in the past few years. What brought to my attention, I guess, was an elderly constituent of mine on dialysis who was, in need of a service, of an affordable service. Do you remember that conversation we had? So I understand this is for Manassas Park and Dale City, but at what point can we look at, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but.
You are, but that's why I'm standing here.
Say that again?
I said, you are putting me on the spot, but that's why I'm standing here, so it's fine.
Okay, because this is a service that I can't help but think of those types of patients, that, and do you reach out to like the dialysis clinics and health clinics that, how do we market a service like this to the people that really need it for their health reasons?
I would say at the current time, we don't actively reach out to those constituents. It's more of reactive at this point. That's certainly something that we can look at changing. As far as the viability of this in other areas, this area has been very carefully chosen, purely because of the the relatively, particularly low riderships, it's kind of one of those things where if it's not coming to your jurisdiction, the good news is that means you have good ridership, right? So we're dipping our toe in here. And, you know, I think something that if we were able to move forward with the pilot, it would be looking at starting sometime, you know, late winter next year, February, March time, and it would run for probably 9 months to a year. And so after that point in time, we would move forward. Mr. Sherman.
To note that this is identified because we do have a low performing route and it's budget neutral. This is the exact right service that we were looking at for Quantico's Dumfries. This is the exact right service we're looking at when you look at the Hoadley Road, Dale Boulevard corridor. This is the toe in the water that if done really well, we just climb right into the pool because it really does provide us, this could be rural transportation.
You mean you dive in?
We just slide, we slide right in. We just, no ripples. So this is the type of thing that really lets us move into rural transportation options. It's great for suburban. If we have low ridership after 9 o'clock at night in a corridor, we can turn the big bus off and turn the micro transit option on. We're not looking at doing something new in the industry. We're looking at doing something new for us. So that's the positive of this. And the team went out to Loudoun County to look at their demonstration and what's working. So they're operating a variation of this. At Loudoun County, Richmond's got a variation. So again, it's not unique. We're not experimenting. We're just experimenting to figure out with our community what works, what doesn't, and can we do it in a way that's budget neutral within this fiscal year? And if it works as well as we hope, then we've got some opportunities in our budgeting process to bring it to the county, cities, et cetera, to do more.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
What's the cost of the rider?
So right now, we're proposing it would remain zero fare. And the reason why is for this next fiscal year, our local fares are zero fare. This is designed to take the customer and just get you, either you're traveling in the zone or we want to get you to the nearest bus stop to get you where you want to go. And so we don't want to have a penalty for transfers. We want to make it easy. This is designed to use the same resources and serve more people. That is at the core. We believe that using the same dollars you're spending right now as a commission, we can serve more people with it. And that is what drives every bit of this.
And that's what makes us happy.
That's right, that's right.
Any, Ms. Bailey?
Please, yeah. So it just kind of thinking about what Supervisor Lawson just said, this is what the same concept that you used when you were trying to get constituents to Gander Mountain.
Yes,
Report,
those
okay.
kinds of concepts.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Whereas instead of trying, like, one of the things that will frequently happen is if someone needs to get somewhere, we say, what about Wheels to Wellness? Well, Wheels to Wellness is like a really narrow band. This instead just allows us to have flexible services without going through application processes and lots of hurdles. It is a transportation solution that we're overdue for. We probably would have brought this to you 6 months sooner, but we're kind of waiting to see if ridership would bounce back up in Manassas Park post-COVID, and it hasn't. And that's not surprising because, as Joe mentioned, once the residents leave the area, there's not a lot of trip generators beyond the classic commute times. And a lot of the residents, we found out they're driving their own vehicles to service economy jobs or construction type work, et cetera. So they're using work vehicles as opposed to the classic commuter into DC or immediately in the area. So there's just not a lot of midday trip generation. Once they leave in the morning, there's limited need. What this does is this gives us a bigger footprint of Manassas Park. And of course, beyond that, it's not just Manassas Park. We use that as the anchor that we describe, but it includes parts of Manassas and Prince William County. And it just servicing that whole corridor that gets them where they need to go.
Yep.
I know we gotta move on. This is a very, really great topic. I just look at Neosco District, Bell Boulevard. You know, I'm one of the older communities in Prince William County, and we've always been talking about walkout neighborhoods. You know, our neighborhoods are built where we have dead end streets that were intended to connect to the next neighborhood, but because the next neighborhood came in, no one wanted to connect it, so they become their own little islands of pockets. So buses don't run all the way down there. So this is absolutely a much needed piece. My question or comment or offer to you all when we get to these public hearings is if there's a way you can give us some information so I can help get it out to my constituents to be a part of this, because this is exactly what you know, even when I'm knocking on doors and walking neighborhoods and talking to people, we have residents that don't drive, that walk literally out of these neighborhoods to the bus stop. And this is a very, very, very good, you know, idea, concept, and hope that we can really get this going. And it's really the next phase of evolution when we continually talk about public transportation, bus rapid transit. How do we get, you know, cars off the road? How do we get people on these buses? How do we help greenhouse gas emissions? I mean, this literally is it. So I want to make sure that I can be a part of helping to get the word out, to get people to this, so we can help get ridership back to where it needs to be and beyond. Thank you.
Make sure that happens.
Yep, and we do have to move on, but I'll also just kind of echo that in that it is a good service, hoping that we can kind of test the waters and expand it. I've met with a couple of the companies that are interested and didn't know really much about it beforehand, but learned a lot about it since. So looking forward to seeing how these work out, hopefully.
We're excited. Thank you for your time.
All right. And now we will move into item 11.1, action items. 11, we'll go into 11.1, the proposed amendments to the bylaws. First reading, I'll turn it over to Ms. Pandak to give a description.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is relatively easy. The General Assembly made some changes to the Freedom of Information Act with respect to virtual meeting attendance. And these bylaw changes are intended to address those. The one set of changes relates to an individual member requesting to attend remotely, and it increases the exemptions or opportunities for that to occur. Right now, as you know, that it's possible both under state law and in the bylaws for someone with a temporary or permanent disability or other medical condition that prevents them from physically attending the meetings to ask to participate virtually. The General Assembly increased that to allow a family member's medical condition when in essence that member is a caretaker for that family member, and that caretaking capacity prevents the physical attendance. So that's one of the additions we added. Secondly, you know that for a member may attend virtually on a limited basis if it's a personal matter, for example, if you were on vacation. And that was limited to 2 meetings a year. The General Assembly has increased that to allow 25% of the meetings a year rounded up. So if there were more meetings of a public body, if we had more than what would allow more than 2 meetings, it would be 25%. So that's a small increase for those personal reasons. And then separately, the General Assembly made additions with respect to virtual meetings, completely virtual during an emergency. And so what we did was we're proposing some amendments that make the bylaws sync with state law now. You'll see some sections are being proposed for deletion because we kind of had to go there 3 different ways you can do this in order to make sure you could legally do it. And now the General Assembly has improved that language. And so we have compressed those sections and proposed to you so that you can, I will say at a bottom line, essentially meet as you did prior to this meeting during the pandemic in order to conduct the business of the commission. And that will be clear. So no, in that regard, no practical change or operational change, just making the bylaw provisions sync with the, I think, more clear as opposed to many opportunities to figure out whether you're legally doing it right so that nobody challenges the situation that we were in last year. So first reading, and then they'll be before you for approval at your next meeting.
Yep, and before we get into the motion, are there any questions for Ms. Pandak? Okay, is there a motion to move item 11.1 forward?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Barker. Any discussion? I'll just say that I wholly support this. I like additional options for electronic meetings. I like the idea of being flexible, so I'm supportive of this, and I hope everyone else is as well. Any other comments or discussion? All right, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry, Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Yesley Vega,
Aye.
Kim Short,
Aye.
Cindy Shelton,
Aye.
Pamela Sadowski,
Aye.
Alana Mensing,
Aye.
Jason Graham,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Thank you. I forgot that we can do voice vote, but we'll now move into item 11.2. This is revised adoption of PRTC's proposed classification and comp pay plan that we just had our presentation on. Is there a motion to move into this item? Moved by Supervisor Angry. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Bailey. Ms. Pandak.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do say that you should be still taking roll call votes. I do apologize in that regard. It's a little easier during the pandemic when you might have thought it was easier, at least with some of your organizations, on how you took votes. But until we get a voting board, you need to be indicating your individual votes.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Any other questions? If not, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Yesley Vega,
Aye.
Kim Short,
Aye.
Cindy Shelton,
Aye.
Pamela Sadowski,
Aye.
Alana Mensing,
Aye.
Jason Graham,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, we'll now move into item 11.3 to authorize the executive director to execute a second extension for the contract with Smart Maps, Inc. for design and production of bus schedules and bus stop information displays. This is only one proposal received. We've only gotten one request for proposal, so the RFP will be reissued. As the contract extension allows production of bus schedules and displays for fall service change. Now I'll turn to Dr. Schneider for further explanation.
Yes, so Smart Maps does our design. So those, if you visit our website, look at the schedule, or you see the posters inside our shelters, they're a professional firm. They do this nationally for a large number of different organizations. They're considered to be subject matter experts in the area. And so we attempted to get a competitive bid process, however, it did not quite work out. Some firms just did not compete, so an extension allows us to revisit that issue.
Madam Chair, I move forward the motion. I move forward for the smart map.
I second.
Motion made by Supervisor Bailey, seconded by Ms. Savesky. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Yesley Vega,
Aye.
Kim Short,
Aye.
Cindy Shelton,
Aye.
Pamela Sadowski,
Aye.
Alana Mensing,
Aye.
Jason Graham,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
We'll now move into item 11.4 to authorize the executive director to conduct public hearings on proposed changes for the Manassas Park Local Route 68 and the Omni-Ride Express Smart Center route. Tonight's action authorizes Dr. Schneider to begin the public review process, and the resolution authorizes the executive director to initiate the public review process to include public hearings. Are there any questions, or Dr. Schneider, anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Is there a motion to move into this item?
So move.
Moved by Supervisor Bailey. Is there a second?
Second, Supervisor Shelton.
By Supervisor Shelton. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Yesley Vega,
Aye.
Kim Short,
Aye.
Cindy Shelton,
Aye.
Pamela Sadowski,
Aye.
Alana Mensing,
Aye.
Jason Graham,
Aye.
Gary Skinner,
Aye.
Todd Horsley,
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, we'll now move into item 11.5 to authorize closed meeting of PRTC. And Sharon, would you like to read the authorization?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is a closed meeting in order to discuss a personnel matter relating to the evaluation of the executive director pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1.
So moved by Supervisor Lawson, seconded by Supervisor Bailey. Any discussion? Christine, will you please call the roll?
Peter Angry,
Aye.
Andrea Bailey, Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson. Leslie Vega.
Aye.
Kim Short. Cindy Shelton. Pamela Tedeschi. Alana Mensing. Jason Graham.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Bob Horsley.
Aye.
George Parker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay, so we'll move into closed session. I think I'll just ask Ms. Mariner to stay.
Use my name.
You're back online.
Thank you, Carl.
All right. We will move into item 11.6 to certify closed meeting of PRTC.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to certify.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Shelton, seconded by Supervisor Angry. Is there any discussion? Steve, will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Yesley Vega.
Aye.
Kim Short.
Aye.
Cindy Shelton.
Aye.
Pamela Sabeski.
Aye.
Alana Mensing.
Aye.
Jason Graham.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think you have in front of you, or I can read you the draft motion coming out of closed meeting. Do you want to wait till Dr. Snyder's back in here?
Yes, and I don't have it in front of me. Oh, thank you. Do we know where Dr. Schneider is?
That way, I'll do this one.
We just jinxed it.
Yeah, we did.
Have some trouble with your screen, girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
I really resist change a lot of these. I'm connected to this thing.
Okay, I'm too OCD. I can't do that. I've changed my.
I'm connected to this.
All right, I will now kind of read the resolution from item 11.6. Whereas in
11.7.
7. Oh, no, items, that's right.
Whereas in accordance with Section 8 of the employment agreement between PRTC and its executive director, the commission established performance incentives measures. And whereas the commission has evaluated the performance of the executive director, and whereas members of the commission's executive committee recommended acceptance of the performance evaluation of the executive director and payment of a supplemental payment. And now therefore be it resolved that the commission hereby approves the performance evaluation of the executive director and thanks him for all of his hard work, particularly during the pandemic as we ease out. Be it further resolved that the commission, in accordance with Section 8 of the executive director's employment agreement, approves a supplemental payment of $4,000 to its executive director for his work between July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, based on the performance measures agreed to by the commission and the executive director.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the resolution.
Madam Chair, I second.
Motion made by Supervisor Bailey, seconded by Supervisor Shelton. Discussion.
Thank you, really quick. I just want to thank Bob for all your hard work with this organization over a very difficult year, like no other that has ever been seen, or hopefully never will be seen again. And though I did not hear this in the motion, I wanted to be clear that this commission feels your work was exceptional as you managed the transition for everything that we've been going through. So thank you for your service to this organization and to our communities at providing a vital necessity for many people to get to work and do the things that need to happen to help all of us get through things.
Ditto.
Is there any other discussion? We'll now move into chair's time, and so.
But you need a vote.
A vote, I'm sorry. That's okay. Sorry, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. Will you please call the roll?
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Andrea Bailey.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Yesley Vega.
Aye.
Kim Short. Cindy Shelton.
Aye.
Pamela Sabeski.
Aye.
Alana Mensing.
Aye.
Jason Graham.
Aye.
Gary Skinner.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Aye.
George Barker.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that resolution is approved.
Thank you. So we'll now move into chair's time, where I'll also take the opportunity to thank Dr. Schneider for the work performed during really the past couple of years now. It's crazy, it's been 2 years of a pandemic, but the work you've done has been exceptional. Definitely want to point out that obviously we hope to kind of be in a better situation economically in the years ahead. I think we will. As we bring ridership back, we'll continue to elevate our employees. Thank you for the work that you've done. Looking forward to the years to come. Thank you. Also want to say thank you to Keolis and Dr. Schneider for the employee engagement and outreach they've been doing. I know there was a town hall recently held for PRTC employees. And so I want to thank you all for the continued outreach and want to encourage other commissioners to participate in those outreach activities. And also, I think we kind of made the directive to work with the City of Manassas to make sure that the public hearing for the micro transit is held in a location that makes the most sense with the ability to do electronic participation as well. And with that, I also want to thank Byron and congratulate him on his promotion and to thank him for all the work that you've been doing, particularly moving us through kind of secure measures. And then also, I know I signed some appreciation documents for a number of our employees. I believe Ms. Althea is one of them for the service to PRTC over all these years. So thank you all for the work that you've done. So thank you. We'll now move into item 13, Commissioner's time.
Victor Anger, oh, well, I don't know. I'm used to calling roll, but I guess we're just gonna start.
I do have a comment. After 18 years of public service being elected, this will be my last year. So I didn't run for the new election.
Wow.
Well, you know, it's been 12 years here with PRTC and VRE, and that was my goal when I first got elected, was bring VRE and PRTC down to Spotsylvania County, which has been very successful. We got it done. We got a new station down there. And there's other things we've done. We've got the VA hospital now coming to our Spotsylvania. So a lot of accomplishments have gone, but it's time for me to spend more time with my 3 grandchildren. I'll be turning 71 this year, and hopefully I can stay up with them for at least 5 or 6 more years. But anyway, I've enjoyed it. I see all the new politicians here, and congratulations on being elected.
You mean public servants?
What's that?
Public servants.
I said, you mean public servants.
Public servant. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and if you didn't have that blue background, you probably, okay. So anyway, thank you. And I see here, the future is very strong. And one of the reasons I'm stepping down is because 12 years ago, and probably Senator Barker will tell you this, it's not the same out there 12 years ago as it is today. We have all these new young faces and people who have a different idea, and that's great. That's what makes this this commission so well. But you know, following people like Ms. Cavigan and those people, Mr. Who was the Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins was just some unbelievable man that I've got to know. And the one thing I can say is that there was no political parties at our meetings, whether it be VRE or PRTC. It was what was good for the counties, what was good for PRTC, and what was good for VRE. And if you can maintain that, you'll be very successful, because there's going to be a lot of things happening in the next few years with transportation, especially on the trains and stuff like that. I feel very confident that you all will handle it very, very well. And I do appreciate my time on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't anticipating on speaking, but thank you so much for your service, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And there's nothing more important than family, so enjoy those grandbabies. And God bless you, and God bless your family. That's all, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I just want to let you guys know that I got married 4th of July. My name is changed.
Oh.
So my last name is now Lamb. So thank you guys very much. I expect it to be changed in the future. And for anyone,
This is
my
your
husband
honeymoon?
is actually.
My husband was sitting there.
He snuck out on you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We gotta solve
I had no comments, but I gotta congratulate you, Mrs. Skinner, and your retirement, and I echo everything that Supervisor Vega just said. Enjoy those grandkids.
Thank you.
Mr. Skinner, Ms. Cadigan told me I would enjoy working with you, and now you're leaving. What is that? But congratulations.
It's the right thing.
It's the right thing. I wish you well. I wish you well. I want to thank Dr. Bob for your great work in the pandemic and how you've partnered with Keolis in that transition. It was impeccable. And we appreciate you. We appreciate you. And to my buddy Byron, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I just want to say thank you, Gary, for your service, and yeah, you've taught me a lot, and you have many more months to continue to make sure that we're listening to you. Congratulations, Byron. I want to thank Joe and Holly. They attended the Transportation Planning Board Commuter Connections Employer Recognition Awards that I was the MC for, and it was nice to have some familiar faces, to see the Omni Ride mask, and it was all about how we move people and how these different businesses are moving their employees and incentivizing their employees to not be in single occupancy vehicles, and Omni Ride's a big part of trying to make that happen. So I wanted to thank them, because like I said, it was great to have some familiar faces. I just want to also acknowledge Supervisor Franklin, that this is only your 4th in-person meeting as chair. And you did a great job transitioning to and then back. And you know, I look forward to getting to ever see everyone's faces. But I just wanted to recognize that they've been doing this now for quite a while. Many more of your meetings were online than they have been in person.
Thank you.
So Gary, we still have the rest of the calendar year with you, right? You're not do we still have the rest of the calendar year with you?
Yes, oh, yeah.
Oh, good, because we'll have like a celebration.
Oh, December 31st.
Good,
That's it.
okay, good.
He knows the dates, what time.
So I'll reserve my remarks, so then, but it's good to physically see everybody. Dr. Snyder, I have to say, I was tickled when I was coming in, your security officer, whose name I don't recall, but
So good.
it was so nice just to see him again.
Wame.
And I told him, I said, you look totally the same, you haven't aged. Anyway, it's good to see everybody, and I just want to echo the comments of Pam. You've really done an outstanding job. You're always there, and I'm one of several of us, and no doubt, you know, you talk to the chair, I'm sure frequently, but every, you know, random time that I need you, I text you, I call you, you're always available. I know you're like that for the operational folks here, and we just want to, you know, let you know that we really do appreciate your service to the community.
All right, well, I want to say that it's great to see everybody after, you know, this is actually my first in-person meeting since 2019. I was in Richmond in January, February, and March in 2020 before everything got, the curtain got pulled on everything. So it's great to see everybody, and I've gotten already a good start this week, because on Tuesday I was in Richmond for 4 meetings, and today I was in Richmond for 3. So, you know, I'm getting back on 95, and unfortunately today there were 2 vehicle fires on the way down. So I was late to the first meeting, but had to do a little detour on my own. But, you know, I think that we survived through everything we've been through over the last almost year and a half now. And I think that the organization has come out of this stronger than we were back in the beginning. Back in 2019 anyway. And I think that we're headed in the right direction. And I think it's a team effort that's clearly leading this, and we're doing the right thing. And Mr. Skinner, you've done a great job here, so thank you. Thank you.
No comments, thank you.
Well, I'm one of the newcomers, Mrs. Skinner, and so it's great to know that people have served for so long. So even though I won't have much time to spend with you, I will try to suck all your knowledge before you leave. Because it's really important, like you said, for this not to be a party effort. This should be an effort to ensure that we take care of the people that are trying to transit from one place to the other. So thank you for your service. And Dr. Snyder, thank you so much. Everyone has so many great things to say what you've done over the last couple of years. So I look forward to continuing to work with you. And I can't say enough for what you've done thus far. So please accept all of our appreciation.
I would just say I move to adjourn.
Second. Dr. Snyder has two more things.
Two things I forgot to mention. One, we will be sending out a save the date for our Western facility ribbon cutting. I believe it's August 11th. So just carve that out. We're gonna do tours, have some fun.
August 11th, you said?
August 11th. And the secondary thing, she asked me not to do it. Last month was my birthday. Christine. So now we can.
Like today?
Like right now.
We have to sing happy birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christine. Happy birthday to you.
I promised I wouldn't leave you in happy birthday. I promised.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I want you all to know that that was live streamed on YouTube.
And I don't think we're gonna give a singing contest anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I didn't sing because I didn't want to ruin your birthday, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Looks like there's on the floor, second, and all in favor? All opposed? Thank you.
Second from everybody.
September, August meeting.
So we'll send out all the alerts. We already have it in the calendar. There is no meeting. So we'll get there's the meeting. Yeah, there is no meeting.
Well, I hope we get to have a little.
Let me know, what we need to do as far as, I
Oh,
also
yeah.
setting up, and she's like, what is the reason you would get?
Oh, absolutely.
And if you have trouble
I
getting.
understand.